Uh, Welcome. We're live now. So we're
All
on.
right.
Tim Hendrickson, I'm joined by today. He is a U.S. Army veteran captain, serving 2 deployments in Operation Iraqi Freedom as a combat arms and military intelligence officer. And welcome. Thank you very much on this Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day to you. I love the
Yeah.
shirt.
Thank you. Yeah. Happy Day to you too. Thanks for having me on. It's great to do this.
I wasn't going to do, my first episode for this new venture. The exchange starts in January, and I said to myself, I want to do a Veterans Day special, get a vet on, and it's a very important day. There's a lot of issues that need to get addressed, and a lot of experiences that I wish people would know about. And I figure, who better than my good friend Tim? Tim and I have known each other for a very long time, so thank you for doing this.
Sure. Yeah. It's our pleasure. We go all the way back to high school and everything. So
Yeah.
absolutely love to do this.
I've never asked you, and I'm curious, what led to joining and serving? Like, what led to being, motivated to join the Army and go through you went through ROTC, I know that, but
Right.
what gave you that motivation? What made you want to do it?
So you could say a calling, I guess you'd say, is the simplest way to put it. It stems from a family tradition. We've had at least 3 generations that I know of that served in the military. So both grandfathers in World War II, my grandmother in World War II, who prior to my commissioning was the highest ranking out of anybody in my family that served. She was actually a second lieutenant nurse stateside here in World War II. My uncle was a door gunner in Vietnam, and my father, the only Marine out of the family. Everybody else was Army, but my father,
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My father, the only Marine, was stationed in Okinawa during Vietnam because the Sullivan Law was still in effect, and you couldn't have 2 brothers in the same combat zone at the same time. So, because my uncle, who was about a year or two older, was combat infantry, my father was stationed in Okinawa. He was motor transport, so he was fixing vehicles and everything from Vietnam that had been attacked or broken down or whatever. So he spent that time there. So obviously a family history. And then I'm one of 4 boys from my father and mother. And out of the 4 of us, I just felt the calling. Even from a little kid, I asked, at Christmas time, I asked for sets of camouflage and jungle boots, and I was practicing low crawling in my backyard when other kids were out playing t-ball and stuff. It's just something I always felt called to do, something I knew I was gonna do. As I went through high school and it became more serious, I started exploring the options of, am I going to enlist? Am I going to go the officer route? Am I going to pursue a military academy or the ROTC route? So I had to kind of sift through all of that, but it was always a foregone conclusion that I was going to serve. And I would say even before I got in, when I was making those decisions, the dream was that I was going to be, a 4-star general one day or something. Like that was it. I wasn't banking on anything else. It was, it was going to be the career in the military, and then I'll figure out what I'm going to do 25 years later, kind of thing. So,
like a patent. You were thinking patent. You were thinking big. Well, that's the way you got to think. You got to think big, right? When you're doing something like that.
I mean, I didn't have other plans when I was 18. It was going to be, well, I'll be in the military for the next 20 years, so I'll figure it out when I retire. That kind of thing.
Now, the Marine Corps and you went Army. Your father was the Marine. The little competition ever since you joined the Army between you and your father.
Yes. I mean, I think those rivalries never die down, and I think the Marine Corps especially likes to just rub elbows with the rest of us and shine us all on, whether it's Air Force, Navy, whatever. But yeah, that exists a little bit. We do like to rib on each other every now and then on the Marine Corps Army differences. I always get on him because the only reason he became a Marine is because he has a fear of flying. And when he reported his older brother, and he decided to volunteer because he knew he was going to be drafted. It was 1968. So he's like, let me volunteer. I'll get a choice of my job if I volunteer versus just getting stuck in the infantry. And when he reported into the recruiting depot, they said, everybody that wants to join the Army, go over here at 0300, you're going to fly out. And everybody who wants to join the Marines, go over here. And at 0300, you're going to take a train down to, down to basic. And because he doesn't like to fly, he took a train. That's the only reason he's Marine. But he'll sit there and destroy the rest of us because
Right.
The Marine Corps is the Marine Corps, and no one else lives up to them. So
once you go through boot camp, it's a different experience. Then you get to talk a lot of shit. Once you get to that boot camp, it's like, all right, I may have taken the train, but now you talked about you were thinking between enlisted and officer. What brought you to the officer rather than enlisted? What were you thinking?
Well, the guidance originally came from my father, being a boot Marine, going through the enlisted things, doing tasks that Marine Corps privates are tasked to do, and he kind of had those. I won't get into the details here, but if you've ever seen Jarhead, you can probably imagine the scene that I'm referring to, that one Marine is doing near the latrines. But he basically said, I would much rather you shoot for the officer ranks because you have the potential, you have the ability. Sorry, the dogs are going crazy. You have the ability and the potential to lead men and not just be a boot on the ground. And I always appreciated that. He kind of cultivated me that way and said, I want you to take that next step. If you're really going to do this in the family line, the family tradition, you should go that route. And so I did pursue it, but I never closed the door on enlistment also. My biggest thing was I wanted to go to college. I wanted to get my degree. And there's two routes to do that. There's the academy and there's ROTC. And so that's where kind of I was deciding from that. But if I couldn't, I came from a working class family. If I couldn't earn a place in an academy or get a scholarship through ROTC, we couldn't afford to send me to college. So basically, I was going to serve one way or the other. And the determining factor was, do I get an ROTC scholarship or do I get into the military academy at West Point? Or am I, my grade's not good enough, my placement not good enough, and therefore I would have to enlist. But it was never a question, between those things, if one happened versus the other, I was going to be serving no matter what. It just so happened that at Hofstra University here on Long Island, I applied for and received one of the two scholarships that was available that year. It was actually a smaller program at the time. I think all totaled, when I was a freshman, there was only, as I was an incoming freshman, there was only about 20 cadets in the program for Hofstra. So very, very small. They only had two scholarships allotted to them. One of them was a 4-year that they gave to a young lady, and then I received a 3-year going in. So even that, I had to go back to my parents and say, Hofstra's an expensive school. Can you swing a year of me going there my freshman year, and then my scholarship will kick in sophomore year? And luckily, they were able to at least do that. It did benefit us in the long run because that.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Subscribe to the show, like it, and comment. Also, if you want the audio version because you're traveling, you're in the car, and you can't watch it, you don't have time to watch the episodes, you could go in the show notes. There is a link provided. Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, whatever your pleasure may be. Join me and listen via the audio versions on those other platforms, okay? But I really like YouTube. I like the way it's working out. And if you can, subscribe. The more subscribers, the better the content I can provide you, and it costs you nothing. So I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.